BookTube. I'm Debs. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if it's your first time. This is Raina Reads Stuff. I'm here in the book shack on a very rainy day. I was, all this month, I have been doing my roundups on Shorty September on a Friday because I'd convinced myself that the final day of September was a Friday. It's not. I don't know where I got that idea from. The final day of September is today. And so, it's time for a Shorty September roundup. I have thoroughly enjoyed this event. So, great thanks to Bert and Sian at Past Storytime and Heather at Soggy Expat Book Nerd. Details below. It's the first time I've taken part, and it was great. I got through so many books. I've actually read 62 books this month, but see that sounds good, doesn't it? But some of them were really, really small, and by small, I mean this sort of small. This is the box set of Penguin Moderns. When we started this month, I had read up to and including number 27, which was Kathy Acker and New York City in 1979, which I have to say was one of my favourites. So I have read 23 of those this month. They average 50 pages, so we're not talking a huge amount of time here. But there were some really good ones. In the last week, I decided that as Shorty September was coming to an end, I would actually try and finish the box set. Mainly because it was living up there on the top shelf, and I took the delivery of some more books today and they didn't fit. So I needed to clear this from the bookshelf in the book shack and take it indoors and stick it on the top of a bookshelf somewhere else. So this week's have been Betty Friedan. The Problem That Has No Name. That was really, really good. And that was about the disillusionment of the American housewife. They didn't want to be stuck at home with their perfect husbands and their perfect families and their perfect houses, left thinking, is this it? It was a really good discussion about that. We had Federica Garcia Lorca, Dialogue of Two Snails. That was a book of poetry. That was great. Loved those. Yuko Tsushima, which was some short stories. Javier Marie, of Dogs and Whales. No. Madame de Dufont and the Idiots. That was really interesting. Javier Marie wrote about he wrote about several different literary characters, and it was his opinions on them. There was Nabokov, Emily Bronte, Madame de Dufont, and they were really interesting. I really enjoyed those. The Haunted Boy, Carson McCullers, loved that. Would definitely read some more of Carson McCullers. Jorge Luis Borgia, The Garden of Forking Paths, short stories about labyrinths and mazes, and I can't say that I really got to grips with them. I can't say that I really understood them, to be honest. Andy Warhol, some essays on love, on beauty, and on fame, which just seemed, they're a bit non-connected, I suppose. The paragraphs didn't appear to be coherent. It was a bit like a bit of a mind dump. Um, some poems from Primo Levi, which were just amazing, and I think everybody should read Primo Levi. Some short stories from Vladimir Nabokov, and the last one was Wendell Berry, which was funny. It was how he wasn't going to buy a computer, and he'd written this article that was published in a paper saying he wasn't going to buy a computer for many reasons. One was that he was a conservationist, and anything that took up electricity was a bad idea as far as he was concerned. Two, that his wife typed out, he wrote in pencil, and his wife typed them out. And while she was typing them, she corrected them. And he liked that method. A computer wasn't going to do that. There were various other reasons. There were a list of about 9 or 10. And then they published 5 of the 20 letters that had been received by the newspaper. 3 of the letters were positive. A couple were on the edge, and all the rest were slating him for his views. So in there was then published 5 of these letters that criticised him for not wanting to buy a computer. And then he wrote a response to that. And the second half of the book was about him writing on attitudes of feminism, because among the arguments that people had put down to say that his first article was wrong was that his wife shouldn't be a slave to him. And I mean, nowhere in this essay did he say that she was a slave. He didn't say whether or not she was paid. He didn't say whether or not she enjoyed the work. He didn't say whether or not it was a long. It took up many hours of her day, but it was all very interesting. His response to that was very interesting and quite amusing. So that took up quite a lot of my final week of shorty September. The other books I read, you can't go wrong with John Steinbeck, can you? The Red Pony. In fact, there's 2 in here. There's The Red Pony, and then there's another one, a small novella at the back called Junius Maltby. Both were very good. One of the things I love about Steinbeck is his sense of place, and now his sense of time as well. He really does just sum up that place and time in the Dust Bowl of America, and his words are sparing but so descriptive, and I absolutely love his work, and hadn't read this and very much enjoyed it. This one arrived in the week. Now, this novel I actually read for Garb August in e-form, but was very pleased when I could find a physical copy of it. But what was better was there is a very short little novella at the back called Die Hard, and that was fun. It was investigating. You've got a character who was a PI but has been banned from being. He's had his license taken away because he's beaten up his his wife's lover. She's run off with him. So he's approached in a bar and asked to investigate something, and tells them that he can't because he's lost his license. And then the person who has asked him to do the investigation leaves and is immediately gunned down outside the door. So he sort of feels he has to investigate. But it's I like, now I've been introduced to it, a little bit of Ed McBain. Finally, this was actually on my TBR for Shorty September. Tove Jansson, Letters from Klara. Tove Jansson wrote the Moomin children's books, which I also love, by the way. But she was an artist, she was a writer, she was a cartoonist, she was a political commentator, she was a children's author. And then later in her life, she started writing for adults as well. Letters from Klara was published in Swedish in 1991, but not in English until much later, I don't think. Yeah, English translation 2017. This is a series of short stories, um, and her writing is quite spare but beautiful. And she's another one who really manages to capture the essence of place. And for her, place were the little islands off the coasts of Sweden, where she spent quite a lot of her time. Now, I don't know what old she was when she wrote this. I should have probably checked beforehand, but she was quite elderly, and there are a number of elderly characters throughout this book. In fact, the first story, which is the titular Letters from Klara, is a chapter about Klara, who's an old lady, and she is writing to various people. She wants to add something to her will, so she writes to a solicitor. She writes to her goddaughter. She writes to, I think it's her friend, Matilda. Um, she's very caustic, very matter of fact. They're hilarious. We have another story about a newly married couple and the groom's mother. Um, but this is one of my favourite ones. It's called In August, and these two opening sentences. One evening in August, Aunt Ada and Aunt Ina sat on the enclosed veranda of their villa, catching their breath. The last of their relatives had driven away, and now the only sound was the wind in their garden. She says so much in those two sentences. I mean, we know what time of year it is. We know what time of day it is. You can guess that Aunt Ada and Aunt Ina are either sisters or they're a couple. It's the evening. They live in a villa. They've got a garden. They've just had a big family gathering. And you know it's big because the last of the cars has just driven away. Not the car has just driven away. And it's now quiet, which gives the impression that it's just been a riotous day. And they're now exhausted and sitting on the veranda, just sort of taking five. And all that's said in two sentences. And it's just so eloquent. Eloquent and beautiful. Now, these stories, some of them don't really have a plot. Some of them are just a general chat. Some do have a plot, but they're gentle and yet they say a lot about the characters in there. And I just think they were brilliant. And it was a really nice way to round off Shorty September, which, incidentally, Bert, Sian and Heather, I have really, really enjoyed. Thank you so much for hosting. Um, and I will certainly be taking part next year. I didn't quite get through all the books that I put on my TBR, but I got through more books than I was expecting to, which is great. And I'm just so relieved to have got through all of those Penguin Moderns. That was one of my goals for this year, to read all 50 of them. Now, sadly, in the intervening few months, I've bought the box set of the Penguin Modern Classics, which is 80 books. So, guess what's going to be on next year's challenge? Um, Thank you very much for watching, and thank you for popping by. Please like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it, as I greatly appreciate all of those people who have done that already. Tomorrow I will catch up with, I'll do my weekly wrap up, because actually, in addition to the shorty books, I have actually read some other stuff. So, again, it will be short and sweet, I hope. Um, have a nice weekend. It's very wet here. I hope it's not where you are, unless you wanted rain. Anyway, have a lovely weekend. Keep reading. I'll speak to you soon. Thanks for popping by.